Hi everyone! Inktober ended last week, and normally I wouldn't do that, but I decided to do a recap this year because I used, 7 different sketchbooks, and I wanted to explain to you why and show you the importance of using the right paper for your mediums. So Inktober is all ink drawings, but there's so many different types of inks that they don't necessarily work with all types of paper. So we're going to start with this one. It's a Plum Chester sketchbook, and it's just regular sketchbook. It's the Art Snacks brand of art supplies, and the paper is just like drawing paper, light drawing paper, cartridge paper. It works well with graphite pencils and fine liners. So this one I did with a fine liner and then a brush pen, and they worked fine. This is just a fine liner here. For the elephant, that was just a fine liner as well. And then this is a brush pen, or several brush pens. And the lighter color was very streaky. So I realized that washes on this didn't work very well. They're too streaky. The paper absorbs the liquid ink too much. So that's kind of why I added more black ink around, because it's more opaque and you can't see the streaks as much. But I wouldn't use this for washes. Other than that, it's pretty good paper. This one here is a render sketchbook. It's made for alcohol-based markers. In the Art Snacks Plus box, we got a render sketchbook, but I used the one I already had because I didn't want to start a brand new one. And what's great about these is that the alcohol-based markers, they do not bleed through. So you can tell nothing went through. So you can use both sides of the pages, which is great for a sketchbook. The only problem with this is it doesn't take washes very well. The fish was colored with acrylic ink, and the colors didn't really look nice. I had to do several layers, and it just really the paper absorbs it, and the color just fades away. So this paper is great for alcohol-based markers, and I would just stick with those, and fine liners, it's fine too. You might be able to use it for other things, but since it's made especially for the markers, I usually just save it for that. Here, I've got a Stillman & Birn Zeta series sketchbook, and that's a great sketchbook. It's mixed media paper, and it's nice and thick. It's 180 pounds, so it can take a lot. And it's like a cold pressed paper. It's nice and smooth, and it takes washes really well, although they might be a bit streaky because it's so smooth. But you can do a lot of details with it. This is a fine liner. Or actually, I think it might have been a dip pen. I forgot. And then ink washes work great. It doesn't absorb the colors and fade and make them fade away. Same thing, fine liner or dip pen. No, this was a dip pen. I know for sure. That's how I messed up the face because my nib was too big. But you know, it worked well with the liquid ink. This is another Stillman & Birn sketchbook, and this one is a beta series. And it's basically the same as the Zeta, except that it's more of a cold press paper. It has a little texture. So it's still 180 pounds, and it's still good for mixed media. I use this one for ballpoint. The blue part is liquid ink, and then the other one was a brush pen. The black one was a brush pen. This is all liquid ink with a fine liner. I've filled up one of those before, and I use it mostly for my Art Snacks challenges because what comes in the Art Snacks boxes is a bunch of different mediums. So the mixed media paper really helps. It can basically take anything. It takes washes pretty well. Not too heavy though. And one more Stillman and Birn sketchbook. This one's the Nova series. The Nova series has tone paper, so it has a black paper, a tan paper, and a gray paper. I like the gray paper to make the whites pop out a lot. It's thinner than the other two. I used it with an alcohol-based marker. It does go through a little bit, so gotta be careful. That's why I always have an extra piece of paper in my sketchbooks in case I need to put it under the paper that I'm using, so that it doesn't go through to the next one. So yeah, I used a brush pen with this one, also a fine liner. This is also alcohol-based marker, brush pen, liquid ink, and again some liquid ink and a brush pen for this one. Same for this. And this is, I think, pretty much all liquid ink, maybe a brush pen as well. So yeah, when you want like super sharp contrasts, tone paper is really nice, especially with the whites. I love it with the whites. Now, this is the one I use the most throughout the challenge. This is a Pentalic watercolor journal. It's 140-pound paper in it. It's cold press. It is not 100% cotton, but it's one of my favorite watercolor journals. So what I like about it is because it's watercolor paper, you can do a lot of layering. So if you're using with liquid ink, it's perfect. This is walnut ink. And with just that one bottle of ink, I was able to create all those different tones just by layering it on top of the previous layer. This is just black ink. That's all I use, black ink and a brush. More walnut ink. And here I have acrylic ink. More acrylic ink with a fine liner. Just black ink and a brush. Same for this one. Same, but also with a fine liner, some acrylic ink for the colors, and I'm not sure if this is acrylic ink, but it's a Winsor & Newton drawing ink. It's the gold one. And you can tell even with all the layers that I have, the paper stays pretty nice and flat. And this is both of them, I believe, Bombay India ink. And this one I put also some acrylic on top of it. And same for this one. What I like about this paper as a watercolor paper is the grain for cold press paper is not so thick, and so that you can use a fine liner easily, or even a dip pen. It's not going to be scratchy. It's not going to flick the ink everywhere. So this is smooth enough to use a fine liner or a dip pen. And finally, I use this little guy. This is a handmade sketchbook, a watercolor journal, I should say. I ordered this on eBay from China, and you had the choice of the cover. It's actually fabrics. And then you had the choice of the paper that you put in there. So I picked the Saunders Waterford paper. It's 140 pounds. And it's cold press. It's a little off-white. It's not super bright white like a lot of watercolor papers, although I think they'd make a very bright white. and this was really nice to use with liquid ink. Takes washes very nicely. It doesn't, unlike this one, it doesn't dry as fast, so you can spread your ink a little easier and avoid hard lines here and there. The only thing I'd say, well, this one I only used ink and a brush, but for this I also used a dip pen, and because it's cold pressed paper and the texture is pretty thick because it's a professional watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton as well. Using a dip pen, if it's too hard, it's going to be scratchy. I used a very fine one for this one, and it was scratchy. It's not impossible. You can use it, but it's not as easy as a smoother paper. So as you can see, papers have different properties, which are great for some mediums, not as great for others. Some kind of meet in the middle, the mixed media paper, if they're thick enough, and you can use them for pretty much everything, but the results might vary. But for the Inktober challenge, I liked using all these sketchbooks because I got the results that I wanted, and it made it a lot more enjoyable. So thank you for stopping by. I hope you like this little recap and understand why I used so many sketchbooks. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.